Today is International Workers' Day. In case you didn't know it, there are activist groups and some unions in New York who have organized protests all throughout New York City to protest President Trump's policies on immigration and go after what they're calling the profiteering done by major financial firms on the mass incarceration of immigrants and people of color. For the whole story, John Shumo's got it. John, what happened today?
Bill, May Day was the top trend on Twitter for most of the day as hundreds of thousands of workers took to the streets really across the world to protest something. Here in New York, demonstrators marched in Lower Manhattan to fight for change in immigration policy, economic policy. Some were advocating for women's rights, gay rights, and voting rights. Democratic candidate for governor Cynthia Nixon joined them to protest, quote, Wall Street profiting from the mass incarceration of undocumented immigrants. Nixon called on big banks to stop funding Trump's prison policy and his racist agenda. The hashtag of choice on social media at that rally was backers of hate. Protesters say these issues take on an added sense of urgency with President Trump in the White House.
It's the International Workers' Day, but it's also a National Day of Resistance. And we're marching together with different organizations that have been working on the ground with immigrant groups, just fighting for respect and dignity and for this Trump administration to stop the separation of families.
Bill, as you know, May Day started as a celebration simply to welcome in the change of season. In the 19th century, it took on a new meaning as a movement was born for workers' rights. Overseas today, International Workers' Day turned violent in many cities, including Paris, Istanbul, and Tehran. In the UK, McDonald's workers went on a mixed strike to protest low wages and unfair work practices. May Day is an official holiday in some 66 countries, but not ours. Interestingly, in the morning on social media, Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo chose to promote different causes. Cuomo tweeted about National Foster Care Month, while de Blasio promoted Mental Health Awareness Month and Small Business Week here in New York. It's also Lupus Awareness Month. Bill, these causes have a lot of competition.
Thank you, John. I'm really not sure where to start with this, from lupus to small business to immigration to gay rights to empowerment of women. Let's bring in the A-plus panel to break it down. Democratic strategist Bill Caruso back with us. Always good to see you, Bill. Brendan Gill is here. He's former campaign manager for Senator Cory Booker and Governor Phil Murphy and is currently a freeholder in New Jersey. Good to see you, Brendan.
Good to see you, Bill.
Andy Laura Nanos, columnist for Law and Crime and an attorney, also with us. Brendan, I'll start with you. Seems almost just like a ceremony now. There's no real focus to any of these protests. And what strikes me, and I want to get your opinion on this, that there's a focus against Trump in a lot of these protests, especially in New York City. But they say nothing of the mass deportations that took place under Barack Obama. Nothing has really changed.
Listen, Trump is clearly the fuel for this fire. What you have today are protests which are recognizing the right to organize, the right to collectively bargain. And yes, there's a focus on the president. Shocking. And it's really not about what has happened, but what's going forward. And what you're seeing, not only in New York, but internationally, is that things that he is doing and things that he is saying are motivating people to get organized and to speak out.
Bill, does this hurt Democratic candidates? I mean, it really is the far left of the party, and you only saw a few hundred people at each of these events, so not very organized, not very vocal. What are your thoughts?
I don't know that it matters. I mean, I think in some places it gets lost in the sauce. There's a cacophony of voices out there, and I think one thing that does hurt our party, and I think very real movements against some of the policies that the president and some Republicans on the other side have been pushing forth, is we are losing this movement. We're losing because there's a protest for everything. And when you're protesting everything, it's hard to focus on the things that are important.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the protests like this really smacks of whatever it is, I'm against it, without any kind of more thought to it. But the one thing that I will say is that President Trump likes to congratulate himself for being the hero of the working man. And it's interesting that this kind of protest happened on International Workers' Day, because these people are standing up and saying, hey, by the way, buddy, you don't really stand for me. And I think that while the protest may be somewhat misguided, I think that message is actually important.
Escucha, James, escucha, estamos en la lucha.